Hey, welcome back to LiveJazzKC Swapping Fours podcast. This is Herschel McWilliams, and this is LiveJazzKC Swapping Fours podcast. And today is we're recording this on the February the 3rd, 2023, and I'm super excited to have yet another wonderful saxophonist with me today. And really, I was looking at it, and we've had like pretty much almost entirely saxophonist to this point, which is okay with me. And but yet another really incredible gentleman saxophonist, human being from Kansas City, Mr. Mike Herrera. Mike, how are you doing today?
Good, Herschel. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Thanks for taking the time to get on here and chat with me and kind of just go over stuff. First of all, when I thought about doing my recording this week, I was immediately thought of you because first and foremost, you're a wonderful musician, but secondly, the Chiefs just made the Super Bowl, and I don't know that there's another guy in town who I feel as such a kindred spirit of my own when it comes to everything in your life. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a huge Chiefs fan. Naturally.
Absolutely huge.
And a big sports fan in general. You saxophonist as well. And you're a family guy, which I know is really important to you and is really important to me. And it seems to be a big focus of the things that I see of yours that you post on social media. I can tell that family is really important to you, as well as your saxophone and the Chiefs. And you play golf, and much to my own heart there. Love playing golf, but more importantly, I've known you now for quite a while, and I was just thinking about the first time I ever got to meet you or play with you is I think it was back like 15 plus years ago at a Harling's gig with with Clint's big band, and you're younger than me by enough to where I thought, man, this kid's good. And I had a really great time playing with you then, and certainly have had the opportunity to do so since. And it's always a blast. And there's no doubt why you're so highly regarded in musical circles around this city. So how have you been, man?
I've been great. It's awesome. Life is good. I've been very blessed, great family, have a great family, 2 kids, a wonderful wife, happily married, great job. And luckily I'm blessed enough I get to play music still, and a career in playing jazz music or any type of music really. But life's good, man. Practicing a lot, and on pins and needles about the Super Bowl here with the Chiefs coming up,
No doubt about that. And so let's talk about that for a second, man. So going into the season, what were your expectations for these guys? I know personally, I'm always optimistic, but part of me was kind of I wouldn't say scared, but had a little anxiety about the fact that we lost some guys like Tyreek Hill, not knowing how we were going to make that work. And all of a sudden the pieces sort of fell into place. But what did you think? How did you think this was going to look coming into the season?
That's a great question for the Chiefs. This is such a homer answer that I'm going to give you.
I like it.
But I was not really worried at all, because I'm on the belief that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest talented quarterback in NFL history. And Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And every time I look at matchups it's usually the best coach and best quarterback win that game. The biggest thing I was worried about was we had, I think it was 4 or 5 rookies starting on defense. So I knew our defense was going to take a while to gel with the rookies. So I was more worried about the defensive side, but I'm never worried about Mahomes. I think the only time I'll be worried about Mahomes is when Kelsey retires, because Kelsey's what made that offense go. It wasn't really Hill, in my opinion.
I remember having that same anxiety when Tony Gonzalez left.
Yeah.
When who are we going to throw the ball to? And then, we about that time we had Kelsey come in and we had Tony Moeaki for like part of a season, and he got hurt. And I said, well, maybe he's going to be the answer. And then the next thing you know, Travis Kelsey's just been absolutely nails since since day one, essentially. And,
right.
You mentioned the rookies being a source of your trepidation a bit, but they certainly took their lumps this year. They certainly took their lumps early. And I mean, I remember just absolutely cussing my TV out going, get these guys off the field. Like it was just, but those growing pains hurt first, for a couple games. Luckily it didn't cost us in terms of results at a large scale, but they're doing their thing now. I mean, you got 3 rookies in defensive backfield that last week were amazing, and against a top flight receiving core in Cincinnati. And you had guys right there in their pocket making great plays when it counted, big plays when it counted, which was great to see. And that really puts some confidence in the pass rush. So we got guys like Chris Jones just having a monster game. Frank Clark decided to show up, which is great. He's Mr. Playoff man, and I'm fine with that so long as he comes through. But yeah, everything seems to be coming together at the right time, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny all year. I feel like it's been the veterans that let the team down more than the rookies almost. I mean, the rookies had their bumps, but you go back to the Colts game and, right or wrong, Chris Jones gets flagged for saying a bad word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some muff things happen. I think Mahomes threw an interception. In the Bengals game, we lost. Kelsey fumbles. Orlando Brown misses a block. He's a veteran. Harrison Butt Kicker's a veteran's missing kicks, right? It's been wild. Veterans. For me, it's like, man, these veterans, what are they doing? These guys are seasoned. They know how to win. What's going on, but yeah, it's crazy how underrated. I think people have really underestimated how good the Chiefs defense has been like the last 4 games, I should say, man. I mean, they are gelling at the right time. I mean, they just look really good. I'm just hoping we get Snead and Willie Gay back for this game.
That no joke. I 100% agree with that. I mean, those are big players on that team. And, as we move through the season, watching their progression and seeing how, and you don't realize it until after the fact, but you see some games where it looks like the defense is just sort of mailing it in, and we might win by a few points. Well, you realize that Spags really hasn't he didn't go out there and show anything. He just went out there and base coverage and if we against the defense, maybe in like a little bit of a shell on defense and just sort of putting some guys out there and going through the motions. And really, when it came time to dial it up, he's dialing it up now. And these teams are going, wait, we ain't seen this kind of these stunts or these blitz packages that he's got put in place. And this is where you turn it on and where the big, all that coordination comes in for sure.
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, you got to win if you win the line of scrimmage, you're going to win the game. That was what's been so big the last really 4 weeks is we've been getting a lot of like Kalafis, the rookie. He had like 0 sacks leading up to, I think it was like week 10 or 12. And now he has like 6 or 7, so I mean, that really helps. Dunlap's been a great addition. And of course, Chris Jones, he should win Defensive Player of the Year in my mind. I don't know if he is, but that guy's been having his best year. So when you win the line of scrimmage, it makes things a little easier on your rookies and your back end too, so, but yeah, I'm just hoping, yeah. But,
well, I think last week we had 5 sacks against Joe Burrow. Yeah. And the week before when they played Buffalo, he didn't get sacked one time.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I believe that's the case anyway. But yeah, and well, I was thinking, well, how are we going to get to him? Well, they got to him. He made bad decisions, and I think that whole quarterback debate is long been over, but there's a nail in that case right now because Mahomes looks like something otherworldly, and it's been fun to watch. And I'll tell you, as a Kansas City and all my life, and I know you've been in Kansas City for forever as well. It was tough to be a Chiefs fan 15 years ago.
Well, my first game I ever went to, Herschel, you'll like that. My dad was a season ticket holder in the early 90s, and I went to it was Steve DeBerg was the quarterback. That's how long I've been in Kansas City. So I grew up.
Me too. Yeah.
But I'll never I think it was the game I went to was Derek Thomas's 6 or 7 sack game against the Seahawks, where he set the record. And I was 6 years old. And I don't really remember anything about it. Like, I remember being at the game going, man, it's really loud here. And people were really upset because we lost that game. But they were really, broke the record or whatever. But yeah, I mean, huge Chiefs fans, just family's huge Chiefs fans. Grew up watching the Chiefs, went through all the, Lynn Elliott missed field goal game, Montana getting hurt in the AFC Championship game against the Bills. And that was amazing because it was the first time we ever got to the AFC Championship game in a Schottenheimer, right? So, but yeah, all those things, man, it's pretty wild. It's been a wild ride. Yeah.
Good, man. I love it. And it kind of goes hand in hand with with this in this city. There's a few things that I can say with 100% belief in my soul that Kansas City is, and Kansas City is a Chiefs town. Kansas City is jazz music, and Kansas City is the world's best barbecue, right? And right now, that's sort of our brand nationally, right? And thank goodness for the Chiefs because they're bringing more notoriety to the city, which is in turn giving some exposure to the other things that we offer with like jazz music. And when people come here to watch the Chiefs game, or when people come here for the upcoming NFL draft, they're going to experience the Chiefs fandom, but they're also going to experience the other great things like we have, like the barbecue and our jazz music. So I think this is going to be huge for everyone if we can parlay this, this Chiefs success into building out more recognition for our jazz scene in general.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to having that draft here because I think that's going to really open the country's eyes up to what we got going on. And I'm hoping that they'll have coverage at some different venues, and people that travel here will go out and experience it and come back and just see how much we got going on. And we're lucky with such a wealth of talent that we have the ability to fill a number of places on any given night with just completely entertaining musicians and groups of all kinds. And Kansas City just right now is that, and we have that opportunity. Like last night was a Thursday night, and we had, just amazing opportunities to see live music all over town. I mean, everywhere from the Westboro Coffee House to Logan Richardson's down at the Ship, or Adam Larson was playing at the Hey Hey Club, and you got people at Corvino and Green Lady Lounge and Chaz and the Phoenix, and it just keeps going. It's all over the place. So talk a little bit about that, like where the kind of gigs, where are you playing right now? I know that recently we played on a little big band thing here or there, or we played with the Temptations a couple years ago for a gig. But what are you playing right now? Like, where are you at?
Well, I'll answer that, but I kind of want to touch on your point about, when your sports team's good, how it's good for the jazz scene. I totally agree with that. When we won the first Super Bowl, I mean, it put spotlight on Kansas City, right? Give you, and you have such a huge opportunity where now we got the draft here in Kansas City,
right?
Where you're for a week or a weekend, you know, all major cities coming here and visiting Kansas City and experiencing Kansas City, right? And what is that experience you want for tourists? Well, like you said, we're known for barbecue, jazz, and fountains, and you know all that stuff. But also, it's been big because to touch even further, we're getting the World Cup too.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
You're world too. So there's a lot of opportunities. There will be opportunities of gigs that probably didn't know existed to play. But to go back to your question, like who I'm playing with, I I think it's been now over 10 years, almost 10 years or over 10 years. I've been playing with Vine Street Rumble. We got a gig that's a music dedicated. All the music came out of Kansas City. We're playing this month down at Northwest Jazz Festival. We're like the headliner, so I'll be doing that, judging that high school band competition. Mike Pagan, piano player. He was at UMKC when I was at UMKC. Been playing a lot with his Pagan Nova band. It's a lot of fun. It's Dave Shell and myself, so it's two saxes, and it's fun. The first set, you know, I'll be on tenor and he'll be on alto, and then the second set we switch books and I'm on alto and he's on tenor or something like that. But we're actually Dr. Pagan is going to have us do a recording in March, so I'll be looking forward to that, working up his music and getting to be on that with him. Bram Winans Swing Tet. What is it? It's a 5-piece. So that's a lot of fun. That's Dave Shell, Brett Jackson, and myself. It's 3 saxes, clarinet, alto, Barry sax, soprano. But that's a lot of fun. You know, we play there. I'll get a lot of sub gigs. Right now I'm doing a lot of stuff. Marcus Lewis Big Band, which I love. I mean, so much fun playing with that band with Marcus. He's just a great guy. And you played with that band. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah. And then, oh gosh, who else? I'll sub for Jim Mayer with Tim Whitmer.
I know. I've been noticing that, man. How that's got to be a fun gig. I mean, that's such an entertaining group of guys to play with. I have to think that that's just a very enjoyable evening of just, you know, a lot of smiles and good times, like the Good Times Quartet. That's what they call it, right? But really,
yeah,
it probably is very true.
You know, it is. You know, and as a musician, you know, I try to be as well-rounded as a musician as I possibly can be for any environment that requires me to do my job and whatever that is. And Tim Whitmer's an entertainer. Like if you go in and go, okay, I'm in entertainment, right? I mean, that's what it's about. It's not like I'm putting on a classical recital, you know. I'm not. It's not like I'm trying to be virtuosic here. I mean, what's nice about playing with Tim is you're always going to play the same music. There are arrangements, and he is sincere about his arrangements and the musicality, and he hires great musicians. He's got like James Albright on bass, Ray DeMarchi drums, and, you know, so you know, that's what I've learned from his group. And he knows how to create a really good following. And also I like Black Dolphin, man. I love that venue. It's a listening room. It's turning into a listening room. You know, the Blue Room's really the only listening room we have in Kansas City that's a true listening room, in my opinion. But Black Dolphin is starting to turn into a listening room. And when Tim's audience or his following, they listen, you know, so that makes it fun too, that, you know, people are actually there to enjoy the music. So, but yeah, great times, man. I love playing with that group.
And in speaking with Jim Mayer about that gig in the past, you know, I mean, he loves doing it because I think he connects with it in a sense, like you were saying, you know, he's there for the audience first, you know, and he's not there with a musical agenda or musical ego. He's there as an entertainer. And I think sometimes that part gets lost in performances, you know, subject to the venues the whole gig, but they really connect with the audience, like you said, which I think is so key to continuing to build upon the scene and grow it, is engaging that audience at that level, so that they can come in, have a good time, and bring their friends, and they'll recognize the songs again the next time they come, and they'll they know what to expect, and they know they're there to be entertained. Much like, and not taking anything away from anyone's musicianship, but much how sort of Lonnie McFadden has unlocked the code to that as well. I mean, he, at a masterful level, he is an incredible musician, but a masterful entertainer, in a sense that you're going to have a great show with him. He puts on a show, and it's a show. It's not a concert. It's not a gig. He puts on a show every single night, and people love it because they are highly entertained. And he won Kansas City's favorite jazz entertainer through the Jazz Ambassadors here, which is all subjective, but people voted for him because of that reason. He's a jazz entertainer,
yeah, he's awesome.
He transcends the musician part and really comes there to entertain. So, and I'm glad to hear that the Black Dolphin has been such a good venue for that in terms of his listening room, because we really do need more of those types of venues. And it'd be nice to see the roster expand, maybe a couple more nights a week, to offer some, at some level, maybe have some people that are touring come through. That would be a great place for a small touring quartet, or, some sort of a ticketed event potentially. I would think that, because it is such a beautiful venue with a great space and great setup, that no matter who plays in there, it's going to sound great. It's going to be enjoyable for the musician as well as the audience.
Oh, 100%. And, even the best concerts I've been to, I've been to, went to St. Louis to see Joshua Redman play. I remember when Kurt Elling and Branford Marsalis were here in town, and I went and listened to their group, or, any great group, they're entertaining the audience, and that's where it's fun, is you have to be. I've learned, I'm gonna be 39, man. I'm getting, I'm gonna be 39 years old in July. And, when you first are starting to be a musician or starting to get your own gigs, you're wanting to play, okay, I got these tunes I memorized. I'm working on this song right now. I'm going to go play, and, and you just want to play. And a lot of times that works out, or you're writing music and all that kind of stuff, and you want to hear your stuff played, and you should be doing that. But if you watch the greats, even, they're both entertainers and virtuosos, and people lean one way or the other, but they still have both, right? It's like 60-40, 70-30 entertaining, 80-20 might be entertaining.
Right.
And the ones that get ridiculous are like, oh, I'm just entertainers and I don't even care about the music, which isn't the case with anybody in town, I don't think. But there's that balance. But for me, when I think of it that way, you're right. You're starting to think differently. It's not it's not about yourself. I mean, you want to play music that's entertaining and fun for you, right? Because then it'll be fun for the audience. But also, you want to be able to connect to the audience as well, too. So, yeah, I totally get.
And it's funny you mentioned Branford Marsalis's name, because just the other day I was scrolling through Facebook or TikTok or something like that, and I found this video that Branford Marsalis had posted, or somebody had posted of him. And I'll share it with you real quick, and you can see it. And I think it might be speaking to kind of what you're getting at here. So let me play it for you real quick.
I don't have a lot of friends who like jazz that aren't musicians, but the ones that do, when you talk about Coltrane, the records they like are John Coltrane with Johnny Hartman, John Coltrane with Duke Ellington. My favorite things. Now the musicians love Giant Steps. Regular people don't give a damn about Giant Steps. They never even heard it. It just goes, and this is where the disconnect is. So the musicians say, let's impress the audience. Let's play Giant Steps. The audience won't be impressed. So then they shake their fists at the audience. And the audience says, these guys are idiots. You know, so they haven't really figured out. Learn giant steps. Yes, learn it. It's math. It's math. It's not music.
So I think that I think that's pretty profound in terms of kind of the topic we were just on, you know, and how it can relate to the audience and really engage the audience at some level, but also, you know, being able to be musically proficient and somewhat fulfilled.
But you know, on it, what I get from what he's saying is, I get what he's saying, but I think most musicians rather listen to favorite things.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
sure.
You know what I mean? Listen to favorite things, listen to, you know, Train with Miles and, you know, the 58 sessions with Cannonball and all that kind of stuff. Like when you learn giant steps as a musician, you're learning it because one, you're like, man, I don't want someone to call giant steps and I can't hang. Or they're calling it because there's tons of musicians and they're just trying to show the other musicians. They're not necessarily trying to play it for an audience. Like, I don't know one person who put on a concert and said in the concert repertoire, there's giant steps, let's just play, you know, unless they're making or something, you know. But I get what he's saying.
Kenny Garrett did that, but he's Kenny Garrett.
Well, yeah, recording, you're right, because you're just, and he did it. And what I loved about it, he made it his own, right? He just didn't do it in 4, right? He kind of arrangement on it, but no, I get what he's saying. Like it's, but yeah, you should definitely, you know, learn all that stuff too. But it absolutely is about the music. The normal ear is not going to care that you're playing, you know, they want to hear pretty melodies or rhythms. You know, that's another way to entertain too. Bobby Watson taught me that, just listening to his music. You know, you can be entertainer on the mic, right? Or your music can just be entertaining, you know, with rhythm. And Bobby's tunes are, you know, you can dance to Bobby, man.
You can dance to every single one, and his rhythmic concept and his even his soloing and his compositionally is always just super captivating on stage or on recording, you know. And it's been that way for a long time. And I think that kind of, I mean, at some level, is sort of at the root of what makes Kansas City's sound historically have been so important, because it is so focused on the feel. The feel, right? Like, I mean, Charlie Parker's bebop sound wasn't a Kansas City sound, right? But he just happened to have been here. But the Kansas City sound was that feel, that the rhythm, the pulse, the you know, phrasing of like the early stuff, like the Moten and those guys, who really, you go back and listen to old Benny Moten records, and it swings as hard as anything you're ever going to listen to.
Oh man, most swinging.
Yeah, when you're with Vine Street Rumble, that's you guys.
Yeah.
And I love that band, by the way. My mom, every time she sees you guys are playing at like Old Shawnee Town or something like that, she's like, I'm going down to hear Vine Street Rumble. And she's excited about it every single time. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't been able to make it every time, but it's always a highlight of her summer. So like, I'm going to jump backwards a bit and just ask you so that I will know more specifically. But so you're lifelong Kansas City guy. Where'd you go to high school?
Yeah, man, I graduated Grandview High School.
Grandview, right on.
Yeah. I went to Grandview High School. I graduated in 03. And then I graduated UMKC with a jazz performance major, you know, and so ever since then, I've just been playing music, you know, trying to play gigs when I can, write music, you know, being a sideman, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, man, I went to Grandview, and my band director was Gary Anders, who I think he was probably the best band director in Missouri. He won, you know, the best band director award. I think it was down in Tantera at MMEA. You know, God bless his soul. The guy passed away. I want to say 5-6 years ago. But great band director, man. He had us playing, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. We were playing Groove Merchant, when I'm in high school, the sax solo. He
Yeah.
would bring in local artist tunes like Hal Melia's arrangement of Lady Bird, which is
That's a
was fun.
monster sax solo.
Yeah, we would be playing stuff like that.
I remember playing that. Quick story, and I was 18 or 19 years old, and I went to Harling's, and Mike McGraw asked me if I wanted to sit in on second tenor, and I was working with him at a music shop, and so I sat down right between Hal Melia on Barry and Todd Wilkinson on lead alto, and we played Lady Bird, and I saw Hal's name. I said, "Oh, this is your arrangement." He goes, "Yeah," and he looks at me, and his eyes get real big. He goes, "Good luck on the soli."
Yeah, man. That was a fun solo, man. I mean, I started when I was 14 years old in middle school. I wanted to play drums. They asked, what instrument you want to play, and I want to play drums, but they already had too many drummers. And they go, "Well, did everybody in your family play music?" And I go, "Well, my mom sings. And my dad, I think, played saxophone in high school for like a year." So he was like, "Okay, you're going to play saxophone." So I was like, "Oh, cool." But I studied with Brian Schumacher, who's a Bob Long disciple from Iowa. I don't know if you know Bob,
Yeah.
ACJO, second alto. But I studied with him from 8th grade to about my sophomore year of high school, but then he moved back to Iowa. And his wife at the time, Megan Schumacher, was like one of the best classical saxophonists in the world. Like, I think she was winning competitions and was taking second in Russia in competitions. And so I got to study with both of them, classical, and I studied jazz with Brian. And then I studied with Kerry Strayer on the jazz side. And then Tim Timmons at UMKC took me as a sophomore. And I played.
Tim's son was a year ahead of me at Tri-Mission North, and he is a monster.
Yeah. But I studied with Tim Timmons from my sophomore year until I graduated UMKC. It was one of the reasons I went to UMKC was to continue with him. And then Kerry goes, "Hey, you should go check out Bobby Watson and the UMKC Jazz Band," because I was trying to figure out where I was going. And I heard Bobby solo, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" I never, I was one of those kids that I did not know like my jazz history, right? Like, I couldn't even tell you who Art Blakey was. I knew him in records, like, oh, he's the drummer with this Bird album, right? But like, I didn't know he had like a Messengers until I heard Bobby, like, and started researching Bobby stuff, because all I cared about was listening to saxophone players. I mean, it was Bird, Bird, Bird. And then Kerry was like, "Hey, do you ever heard Cannibal Adderley?" And I'm like, "Nope." He's like, "Well, here's Kind of Blue. Go tell me what you think of it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I love this guy." So then I bought every Cannibal Adderley. And then from Kerry's recordings, Kerry Strayer, his recordings, he had Frank Mantooth, Ted Nash. He had some Todd Strait, Gary Foster.
Yeah.
So I like so I bought all these Ted Nash albums, and I love Gary Foster. I was like, God, I've never heard an alto sound so smooth, Gary's sound. So I was really big on the sound of players, like just their sound. How much
100%. 100%.
So I just tried to emulate them as much as possible. And of course I was studying classical saxophone with Timmons, and Kerry had me, learning all my changes and chords and all that kind of stuff. So, but great teachers. And I've been blessed to have phenomenal teachers of teaching me how important it is to master as to the best of my ability, I'm not saying I have, but the best of my ability to master your basics. I learned a long time ago that, you can go learn the Bozza aria, a classical saxophone solo, a really slow classical sax piece, and sound just as good or better than someone who's a doctoral student at UMKC, because you paid attention more to the details. So for me, it's not about how much or all the new, you know, stuff or out stuff. And by the way, I want to learn all that, but it's more about the music. You know, are you getting like goosebumps? I want goosebumps when I play. You know, I want people to feel goosebumps. You know, Quincy Jones is a great autobiography about him. When he's in the studio, he said, all I listen for is goosebumps. If I don't get the goosebumps, I know something's wrong and I figure it out. So, like that's his key, you know. But I think that's part of it's like, you know, did Bird know all this crazy out, you know, John Coltrane or you know, all these different substitutions and all this stuff? It's like, no, he wasn't really playing. He knew some, but mainly he was mastering his basics, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, you know, if you're going to play jazz music, you know, with Bird and Dizzy, if you think about the time they grew up in, you know, jazz was poo-pooed on all the way up until about the 90s or early 2000s, like at conservatories, right? So they felt like, I feel like listening to them, they felt like they had a responsibility to show how virtuoso this music is, you know. So when I listen to Bird, it's like super clean, no mistakes, perfect phrasing, like just probably the best phraser of any soloist in the history of jazz, in my opinion, is Charlie Parker. The guy can like no
funny, and that's not funny you say that, but it's interesting you say that, because I don't know if you listened to any of my conversation with Eric Alexander that we have on here. Well, and he said something very interesting, and he teaches, and he's a guy I listened to early on because I loved his sound, right? Like you mentioned, like just his sound is so big and I was like, that's a tenor sound to me, man.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
so Eric was saying, if I never, something, I'm paraphrasing it, but he says, if I never wanted to teach another saxophone lesson again, and I would just tell all of my students one thing: go learn 50 bird heads perfectly, and then you've mastered the modern jazz language.
You know what? Funny you say that, 'cause I just picked up the second edition of the new Charlie Parker Omni book, which got a bunch of things on it. I mean, it's truth, man. Like his phrasing is just unbelievable. Like it's so musical. Everything he does is so musical to me. I mean, he's my favorite saxophonist. He always will be.
And
so
for sure. And he says, and he went on to say, he goes, and until further notice, he will be the consummate definition of modern jazz language until further notice. He says, I don't know, some alien might come down and supersede Parker, but I doubt it. And he goes, yeah, it's a great listen. If you have a chance to go back a couple episodes, and we had him on, and we had a great conversation with Eric Alexander about this kind of thing and some other stuff as well. But he's really a good listen. So, but he mentioned that regarding Bird, and I never realized that Bird was such a huge influence to him. Naturally, I knew they would have been an influence, but listening to him, I immediately get other tones of Dexter and Joe Henderson and some of that stuff, because he's a tenor player, obviously. But yeah, the bebop language is all there, and that guy's put the work in. He also tells a really great story about the Monk competition when he finished second to Josh Redman, and it's really funny. I won't ruin it for anybody, but if you go back and listen to that, it's a really good anecdote from him.
That's awesome. I mean, it's so cool that you do this, Herschel. I just think it's great that you have these, LiveJazzKC streams and interview people. I have checked out the one like when you had Valdez on, when you had Bobby on. I think that was like a 2-episode one because he was talking.
Oh yeah, on the video on YouTube.
Yeah, and those were cool. But no, I need to check out that one, the Eric Alexander one. I will say this though, it for me, it's more about, it's not how much you know, it's what you do with what you know. And I feel, I mean, and that's in anything. It's not just music, you know. So, but you do want to know as much as possible too. But don't move on until you feel like you really know something. Like I used to drive my peers nuts, and like I'll never forget. I always played this one lick in college on probably every solo I ever played. It was like a semester. It was just the 13, the flat 13, the Laura lick, you know.
Oh yeah.
I was like, da 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 do da do da 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 do da da da, and I like put it in everything. And Ben and so Kevin Sarah goes, why the hell are you playing that so much? And Ben Lifer goes, because he's trying to master it. And I go, yeah, that's exactly right. I'm trying to play it in every goddamn key, so I know it, you know, in and out, you know. So, but I think that's just really important to something that I feel like if you can knock out that's something I've learned too is, you know, when I talk to younger musicians like that just started college at the conservatory, I try to tell them, I go, listen, I get more done now practicing in an hour than I did in 3 or 4 hours at the conservatory because I figured out how to practice. Right. So, you know, it's more about, it's very, you know, as a young student, you can be very overwhelmed. You're like, I got to learn all these tunes. I need to learn all these scales. I need to learn this. I got to go practice flute and clarinet. I got to, you know, whatever you're working on. Right. And it's just so important to be able to break down one thing and practice that, you know. I think there's nothing better than working up a piece of music or a solo. Like if you want to get, for me, if you want to get better on your instrument, go work up a solo, like to the T. Just go work up something out of the Omni book or transcribe something and just really work on it for 6 months. Just work on that. Like just work on that and practice, you know, just like, don't worry, like just go work on that kind of stuff. So that's kind of stuff I'm working on now, trying to get better at, trying to, you know, when I listen to like Steve Martin or Adam Larson, right? These guys are or even like Dave Shale, who I really love his playing. You can tell those guys have really transcribed and worked up tons of solos, and really worked on emulating to the T's sounds of players that they enjoyed listening to. Right, their details are they're very detailed oriented. You can really tell. Yeah, so that's something I strive to be at it. Those are like those guys. I just love listening to those 3 guys play, man. Any chance I can hear, I go listen to those guys, if it's on Facebook or a YouTube video or just live, you know. But yeah,
I think
that's.
I think that there's a lot to be said for taking that approach to practicing, and also practicing what you like too, you know, because so often when you're young, you're forced to practice things that you're not into.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and once you can connect with what you're working on because it inspires you, or you want to, you just enjoy it, or, you know, in my case, like I remember listening to a Joshua Redman album when I was in college, and I tried to earball an entire solo, and I got as far as I could into it. And then he just, you know, he lost me at some point, somewhere in the middle. But I remember working on it and just slowly adding a bar or two. And because I was so into it, I was determined to work on it, that, you know, it kept me motivated. So whereas maybe working on the, you know, Creston Sonata was like having to go dust my house. You know what I'm saying?
Man, that is what you just said something I think that's so important in teaching too. Like if you teach younger students, so like I teach private lessons, right? I'll teach younger kids that just started maybe a year in a saxophone, you know, middle school age, right? I mean, it's so important to and this happened to me in college too, but let them play what they want to play or learn. Like if they're into Kenny G and they want to sound like Kenny G, as long as they're putting the horn to their mouth, right, you can work with that. Like I remember when I was in college, Bobby wanted me to learn all this, what was it? Whisper Not, the tune Whisper Not. And I'm working on it. And He's like, what do you want to learn? I said, man, I really want to learn Chigas Adage, man. I want to, I've been listening to this Dizzy one, and it's got Lou Donaldson playing. It just sounds so smooth. Starts off with the ocean, It's like, I want to learn Chigas Adage so bad, and they played in a different key than the original key that's in the audiobook too. And he was like, well, go learn Chigas Adage. I was like, all right. And that week of practice was awesome because I got to learn the tune I always wanted to that was like inspiring me in that moment. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, right, man. If there's something you want to just work on because it inspires you, go do it. I mean, 100%. So.
Man, well, hey, we've been doing this for a while, and I just want to thank you for your time and just remind everybody that, Mike Herrera, you're likely to see him anywhere and everywhere around town at any given time. And I love knowing when you're playing, and I see you with Jim Lauer or the big bands or Louis Neal or whatever. And I might run into you on one of the Jim Lauer gigs here or there, but it's always a blast to see you. And yeah, hold on. So yeah, long story short, man, thanks for what you do. Thanks for bringing so much like light and positivity and like just good music to what you're doing, and so much effort. And if there's anything I can do for you in the future, please let me know. And I look forward to hearing more from you. And to plug some things that I have going on. Check out LiveJazzKC.com if you're listening. Check out the calendar daily, and we'll be talking soon. But hey, Mike, blessings to you and your family, man. And let's get out and golf this spring, please.
Yeah, man, we got to go golf and go Chiefs. And
go Chiefs.
Yeah, man, just, if the last thing I would say is be on time, don't be a jerk, and then can you play, in that order. So if you're someone trying to get gigs, those are the big three. Be on time, don't be a jerk, and in that order. And then can you play? Because everyone can play. So
if you want to be on the scene, you got to be on the scene. Isn't that right?
But go. I appreciate you, Herschel. Thanks for thinking of me.
For sure, man. Let's talk again soon.
Yeah.
Take care, buddy. All righty. This has been Live Jazz KC Swapping Fours podcast with Mike Herrera. My name is Herschel McWilliams. We will see you next time.